Imagine waking up one morning, the sun's barely up and you try to stretch, but something's wrong, really wrong. You can't move right. Your body feels alien, hard, segmented, twitching. You've just, boom, transformed into something, monstrous. The shock, the absolute terror, the just sheer weirdness of it. It's not a bad dream, is it? Nope. It's the unforgettable, totally disorienting opening of one of the 20th century's most iconic and, frankly, unsettling novellas, Franz Kafka's The Metamorphosis. So today we're doing a deep dive into this incredible work. It's a story that honestly still hits hard with questions about being human, family, just existing in a world that often feels like it doesn't care. Our mission, pretty simple, really. We want to unpack it, explore those big themes that stick with you, figure out why it's still so important, basically give you a shortcut to understanding its brilliance so you walk away knowing its impact. So over the next bit, we'll look at Kafka's unique view, break down that shocking plot, meet the family caught in this nightmare, and get into the symbols that make it unforgettable. Oh, and yeah, we absolutely have to talk about what Kafka-esque actually means. Because, let's face it, his name gets thrown around a lot. Let's start right there, actually, Franz Kafka. When someone says, oh, that's so Kafka-esque, my first thought is always, endless government forms, right? Trying to get something simple done and hitting a wall of bureaucracy. Is that basically it? Or is there, something deeper, maybe more unnerving going on?
You're definitely onto something with the bureaucracy nightmare. That's a big part of the feeling. But Kafka-esque, it's often more insidious than just red tape. Think about the dread, like being stuck in some bizarre, nonsensical system where you feel guilty, but you don't know why. Powerless against some authority you can't even see. And logic, it's just completely gone out the window. It's not just confusing, it's deeply unsettling, often with this weird, absurd edge. And what's really fascinating is how Kafka's own life, his own feelings, sort of bled into his writing. It created this really distinct worldview. His big themes, alienation, bureaucracy, but also guilt, the absurd. They aren't just like story elements. They feel like a real commentary on being human in the modern world. And that vision, it hugely influenced 20th century literature, how writers tackle those big existential questions, the individual versus the system. It's that feeling of being totally out of control in a world with rules that make no sense, a lot like Gregor Samsa finds himself.
Right, Gregor. Which brings us straight to the plot. I mean, that opening is it's one of the most famous and strangest starts to any story ever. He just wakes up a giant bug, bam, it hits you immediately. But what gets me, and maybe this is the chilling part, is how Kafka takes this completely wild idea and makes it feel almost ordinary, like it's just another bad Tuesday morning, not some cosmic horror. How does he do that?
Well, the genius is really in how matter-of-fact Kafka is about it. There's no big explanation, no warning. Gregor Samsa, a traveling salesman, wakes up an insect, full stop. It just is. And his first thought isn't, why me or what happened? It's, oh no, I'm going to be late for work.
Seriously. Even then.
Yeah. Even in this grotesque state, he's worried about his job, his train. It instantly shows you how much his identity, his humanity, even in his own eyes, was already tied up in being productive, in his responsibilities. And then the story just carefully lays out how his family reacts, step by step. At first, okay, there's shock, bewilderment, maybe even a clumsy attempt to help. But that shifts pretty fast. It turns into this deep shame. I mean, what do the neighbors think? How do they live with this thing in the house?
Yeah, the social pressure.
Exactly. And then, tragically, it just spirals down into total rejection. Gregor, who used to be the breadwinner, the one holding everything together, he becomes this unbearable burden. He's physically disgusting to them, emotionally exhausting. And the story ends with his slow decline. He stops eating, gets weaker, and eventually dies. And for the family, honestly, it feels more like relief than grief.
Ooh, that's harsh.
It is. His whole existence becomes this stark picture of how society could just discard people when they're not useful or when they're different.
It really is heartbreaking to follow his decline. And, it feels like it's not just Gregor transforming. The whole Samsa family kind of morphs around him, right? So let's talk about them, starting with Gregor himself. I wonder how much of him was already sort of insect-like before the change. Given his job, the family pressure.
That's a really sharp point. Because Gregor's physical change, waking up as this bug, it's incredibly striking, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's more than just literal. It's like a physical manifestation of the alienation he already felt, deep down.
Oh.
Yeah, even before he turned into an insect, he was cut off at his job. Totally dehumanizing, just grinding away. And even at home, subtly, his main value was as the provider, right? The transformation just rips away that last layer of his human appearance, revealing the sort of trapped, insect-like existence he was already living, crushed by debt and duty. Then you've got Great, his sister. She's interesting because, at first, she seems like the caring one.
Right, she tries to feed him, cleans his room.
Exactly. She makes an effort, tries to find food he might like, keeps his space tidy. It's this little flicker of empathy, of connection. But as time goes on and the reality of the situation sinks in, the burden just gets too heavy for her. Her patience wears thin, and she's the one who eventually turns on him most decisively, starts seeing him purely as this awful burden, draining everything from the family.
Wow. From caregiver to executioner almost.
In a way, yeah. Her shift is maybe the most painful because it shows how even family love can have limits under that kind of pressure. Makes you wonder where those lines really are for anyone. And then Mr. and Mrs. Samsa, the parents, they're pretty much repulsed and overwhelmed from early on. Mr. Samsa, who'd been relying on Gregor's earnings, has to go back to work. And you see this resentment build up, sometimes even turning into aggression towards Gregor.
Like throwing the apple.
Precisely. And Mrs. Samsa, she's just torn. There's maybe some lingering maternal feeling, but mostly it's terror and disgust. She faints, she avoids him. Their reactions together just show the complete collapse of the family unit, how fast that connection can break down when faced with something scary or inconvenient or just unproductive. The family's whole world, their money, their social standing, it was all tied to Gregor. When he couldn't provide that anymore, their compassion just evaporated.
Okay, let's dig into that a bit more, because this isn't just some weird horror story, is it? It feels packed with these deep insights about being human that are still maybe disturbingly relevant today. What are the really big questions Kafka wants us to wrestle with here? What's the story telling us about ourselves?
Well, it really forces you to ask, what does it mean to be human when your value seems tied to what you do, not who you are? That's a chilling core idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
How easily our perceived humanity can just disappear if we stop being useful. First off, there's that huge theme of alienation and isolation. Gregor's change physically cuts him off, sure. But it's really just mirroring the isolation he already felt.
At work, you mean?
At his grinding, dehumanizing job, yeah, he was just a number. But tragically, it extends to his family, too. Eventually, they can barely even look at him, let alone talk to him. Total isolation. Then there's dehumanization. Absolutely central. Kafka shows brilliantly how Gregor's worth to society, even to his own family, was completely wrapped up in his ability to work, to earn money. Once that's gone, poof, his humanity seems to vanish in their eyes. He's not Gregor anymore, he's it, the insect, a problem they need to get rid of. It forces us, listening now, to think about how much of our own value we tie to productivity. It's a stark wake-up call. Stop contributing, and society might just make you feel less than human. And the whole family and duty dynamic is crucial too. Gregor was the selfless provider, right? Then it becomes this awful burden. That switch really throws the conditional nature of love and duty into sharp relief. It asks, is love really unconditional? Or does it crumble when the person can't fulfill their expected role anymore? The family's struggle to cope, financially and socially, pushes them to their limits. It reveals some hidden strength, maybe, but ultimately their cruelty too. And finally, it digs deep into identity and self-worth. The story makes you think, how much is your identity, your value, defined by your job?
Yeah.
Your social role?
What happens if you lose that?
Exactly. If you lose your job or your status or even your physical abilities, who are you then? And maybe more scarily, how do other people see your worth? It's a terrifying thought, one we probably try not to think about too much.
That's a really powerful point. And yeah, it makes me sort of cringe thinking about the family's reaction. Makes me think about times I might have dismissed someone just because they were inconvenient, But this is where it gets really interesting, I think. Because Kafka doesn't just lay out these themes. He uses every little detail, every object to pack in more meaning. He's just a master of symbolism. So what are some of the key symbols we should be looking for, the ones that really unlock the deeper stuff?
Oh, absolutely. This is where Kafka's craft is just so precise. Everything feels loaded with meaning, almost painfully so. The most obvious one, of course, is the insect itself. It's not just a creepy crawly, it's Kafka's way of showing, bam, this is how fast society can strip away your humanity once you become other or useless. Yeah. It's a powerful symbol for Gregor losing his human form, sure, but also his inability to communicate, and maybe most damningly, society's cruelty in just tossing aside those who don't fit or produce.
So it embodies his whole fall from being a person to just a pest.
It's exactly. A complete transformation into an unwanted outcast. Another really potent symbol, locked doors. They're not just keeping him in. They represent the growing separation, the breakdown in communication between Gregor and his family. As the story goes on, the doors aren't just shut, they're locked. It physically emphasizes his isolation. Each click of that lock is like another step sealing him away from the human world he used to belong to.
Cutting him off.
Definitely. And then there's food. This starts off as potentially a symbol of care, maybe even love.
When Greet tries to figure out what he likes,
Right. That initial effort, trying to find something he might eat, it's like this fragile, tenuous connection, a last thread of affection. The family's first awkward attempt to adapt, to still care.
yeah.
But as things get darker, food becomes a symbol of total rejection. They struggle even to deal with feeding him. The whole act of bringing food or taking away uneaten food becomes loaded with disgust. It's a physical sign of their wish for him to just disappear. The very thing meant for nourishment becomes another source of conflict, pushing him further away until he literally starves, surrounded by food he can't or won't eat.
Wow. Okay, so tying this all together, what does it mean for us now? In the big picture, this isn't just some historical curiosity. It feels incredibly relevant, isn't it? What's the broader philosophical takeaway here, especially for you, the listener, just trying to navigate everyday life?
Well, if you zoom out, the Metamorphosis really clicks with some major philosophical ideas, like existentialism, the whole struggle to find meaning in a meaningless universe, and absurdism, too, that clash between our human need for meaning and the world's apparent indifference. Gregor's situation.
Yeah.
It's totally illogical, no reason given, no escape.
Just thrown into it.
Exactly. Thrown into this absurd reality, his suffering, his family's reaction, it all points to that struggle to find purpose or logic in a world that feels hostile or just blank. There's no explanation, just the grim reality. So the universal message, I think, is that the story confronts you directly with these fundamental questions about empathy, about value, about what it really means to be human right now today. It kind of forces us to look at our own reactions. How do we treat people who become inconvenient, unproductive, who are just different?
Are we really compassionate?
Or is our empathy conditional? Does it depend on someone fitting in, pulling their weight in ways we expect? It's a timeless challenge to the very basis of human connection and how society decides who matters. It's kind of a mirror, really, reflecting our own fears and maybe our own prejudices.
And I think it's for all those reasons, really, that this novella has had such an incredible staying power. It feels like a cornerstone of modern literature, doesn't it? People are still constantly analyzing it.
Oh, absolutely. The Metamorphosis is undoubtedly one of the most influential works of modernist literature. Its unique narrative style, its deep psychological dives, its unflinching look at cruelty and vulnerability that's cemented its place. And yeah, it's still sparking analysis across so many fields: psychology, philosophy, literary studies, you name it. That just underscores how relevant it still feels. That simple, chilling premise keeps provoking really complex thought.
So we've seen how Kafka's The Metamorphosis takes this totally bizarre, surreal transformation and uses it to explore these deep truths about alienation, identity, and, well, how conditional human empathy can often be. It's one of those stories that just sticks with you, right?
Yeah.
A real testament to Kafka's power to boil down these huge anxieties into one single terrifying image. So maybe the next time you feel like just a cog in the machine, or you see someone who's struggling, someone who maybe can't contribute in the usual ways anymore, think about Kafka's chilling message. What defines your worth? What truly makes you human when all the external stuff is stripped away? And maybe more importantly, how do we treat those people, the ones who fall outside the lines? It's a question that still echoes long, long after Gregor Samsa drew his last breath.